Hey everybody, Wildman Z here with another comic book review. This is really an omnibus, so it's a multitude of comic books. This is Uncanny X-Men Omnibus number 2, which has comics from approximately 1980 to 1982. It covers Uncanny X-Men from issue number 132 to 153, as well as two annuals, Uncanny X-Men Annual number 4 and 5, and it also has a really excellent Avengers, maybe my favorite Avengers annual, number 10 from that time period, which introduces Rogue as the foster daughter of Mystique, and she's wholly a villain in her early introductions. Actually, pretty mean villain too. She's just as bad as Mystique, if not worse, in this issue. Beautiful cover. That's pretty much a reproduction or a recoloring of, looks like, of issue number 137, the climatic battle of Jean Grey's life on the moon. Very famous comic. If you're familiar with the X-Men and you're over 40-ish, you surely know the story. If not, it's a really fantastic read. Get yourself this, or any other omnibus of the Dark Phoenix saga, or compilation with the Dark Phoenix saga. And I've outlined the story before, but basically the idea is that Jean Grey, she classically was Marvel Girl in the old days. In the late 70s, she became inundated with the power of the Phoenix as she was trying to save her team. It was a space-based adventure, and the Phoenix Force sort of inundated her body and took her from the level of a pretty low-lying telepath and telekinetic to a super powerful being that could control time and space and things on a molecular level and read minds like you wouldn't believe. Way more powerful than Xavier and Magneto and the really uber powerful characters of mutants at the time. She was probably at one time Marvel's most powerful character. I would say she was more powerful than Thor and the Surfer and so forth at the peak of her Phoenix power, although she had limited control over it. And then she becomes corrupted through the details of which I'll spare you. That's a whole talk unto itself, and I think I've covered in some other videos. But this is all taking place without having conflict with what's known as the Hellfire Club. Basically, some of the pins that were pulled, the way she was manipulated by members of the club, cause her to become the Dark Phoenix. She destroys a planet and a fleet of spacecraft in the process, and is condemned to death and has to fight for her life, an epic battle on the blue area of the moon against the guards of the Shi'ar Empire, basically. All Superman, a whole bunch of characters that are like Superman level power, like the Gladiator and a whole bunch of other super powerful beings, the Smasher. They all can fly. It's kind of like the Legion of Superheroes, if you will. More members, more powerful than the X-Men, and her power gets reduced to that of Marvel Girl, basically. It's arguably like the best comic book ever written. I mean, I would put it up there. It's issue number 137 of the X-Men. If you've never read it and you're a comic book fan at all, get yourself, you don't have to get the original, but just get a reprint of the Dark Phoenix saga in the Epic line, or this here. If you get this, I would really suggest, if you're going to spend the money, it's a chunk, but get volume 1 of Uncanny X-Men and volume 2. Read it in one fell swoop over, a course of a few months or however long it takes you. Really enjoy it. If you love comics, I would argue it's the best, or certainly one of the best runs of comics. And I'm putting Marvel, DC, and everybody else in there, period. And I would be hard-pressed. I would really want to argue with anybody that doesn't consider it a top 3 or 4. I mean, everybody has their preferences, but it is one of, if not the best run. It's the best one I've ever read. I was so fortunate when I got into comics. I read one issue before this. It starts at 132. The last issue of Omnibus 1 of Uncanny X-Men is issue 131. That's the first one I picked up off the newsstand when I was about 12. It was at Genovese. It was a drugstore back in the day. And in the old days, if you're a younger person, drugstores, pharmacies, as they're called these days, carried comic books along with other magazines. Sometimes they even have nudie magazines in there, like Playboy and stuff, usually with a black cover or something over it. But they would have comic books too. They might have like the serious magazines, like I don't know. I mean, Life or whatever it was, Time, and then they would have comic books, and then maybe somewhere in the back they had like Playboys and stuff. And so you kids, you're trying to see all as much of it as you could. I was limited, and we didn't have a lot of money. Maybe I had $1.50 to get comics, so I'd get 2 or 3. I always got the Avengers and the FF. Once in a while, Defenders. I like the teams, and I only read Marvel at the time. And now I'm finding DC is great, but like when I was a kid, you either like Marvel or DC. And then I saw the cover of 131 after a few months of collecting, hit or miss Avengers and FF basically. And it looked really cool. It had Emma Frost on the cover, and I bought it. And it was so different than the other comics. The art was, a lot of the other comics had good art and so forth. George Perez was on the Avengers. He's fantastic. I don't remember who was on FF, but whoever it was really good. But the writing was very dense. It was intriguing, and the characters were so strange. Let's open up some of the pictures here. We'll just look at a few of them, and I've shown these before. And I'm not going to cover any of them, but it kicks off with 132, which is spectacular issue. So I'm starting comics, and right from the second issue of this new team I've discovered, I'm seeing them get tromped by this other team of mainly mutants. There's one character that's a cyborg, but the rest of these other characters, Sebastian Shaw, Harry Leland's over here somewhere, and Jason Weingart, a.k.a. Mastermind. That's kind of a spoiler, but it's a 40-year-old comic. It's are all mutants. Pierce might be as well, but I know his main thing is he's maybe has some recovery powers or something, but I know he's a cyborg. I'm not sure how he gets in with these guys, but beautiful. Here's an opening spread page showing you the Angel coming on in. But these were all really, really fun issues. I would just wait so intensely for these comics to come. If you do get these omnibuses, they reprint the letter pages. The only thing they don't reprint are the advertisements. If you get the Marvel facsimiles, and I'm sure all or most of these either are or will be in the facsimile form. This is exactly why they're making them, to reprint great old comics, because I think new comics kind of suck. A lot of people do. They have sales like 2,000 or 3,000 units of each comic a month is considered good. That's horrendous. I mean, they used to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. Check out this cover. This was really, this is 133, where Wolverine breaks out, and I didn't realize this at the time. I took it. He was badass initially when I picked up the comic, but they really, I went back and got some of the older ones, and I've read them all now of the new X-Men. That's the team, the international team, if you will, the ones you're really familiar with. But the early issues, he's kind of like a smug, snide kind of guy, and you're not really seeing how powerful he is early on. But now you realize what a good fighter he is in this issue. He's fighting a whole bunch of minions, but there's a lot of them for the Hellfire Club. They're heavy military guys, kind of mercs, heavily armored and got good weapons and fighting skills. But it's such he's like a street level guy, kind of. But man, he's taking these dudes out. He's just up in the rafters and he drops in on them. It's so badass, and they imply that he actually kills or maims people, and I'm not used to seeing that with the Avengers and the FF for sure. But they're firing right at him. There's a great scene in here. I just remember where this 2-page fight scene in here, he takes a bullet right in the gut, and then he gets up, and the guy is like, "Holy crap, he lived," And he basically tells the guy, either you're going to tell me what's going on here. He's going back in to break his friends out. They were beaten in the last issue out of the Hellfire Club. He's like, I wonder if Wolverine can shish kebab you, or you'll get, if you'll be successful and kill me, And the guy obviously drops his gun, and Wolverine spares him. But those guys come back later, the guys he named at least. I guess they were rejuvenated by by Pierce, and they come back as the Reavers in the mid to late 80s. In a lot of the Australian Outback stories, they're cybernetic at this point, kind of like Pierce is. But, it's absolutely, these issues are spectacular. I'm just going to flip through, we'll cover just whatever we cover. I don't really have any plan here. Just want to talk about comics. Look at this fight scene here in 133 between Wolverine and some of the guys in the Hellfire Club. It's like he's tossing that guy. Great. John Byrne's art is just spectacular. It's unbelievable for comic book art. At the same time, Scott is fighting Jason Weingart on a side plane. Really cool. Byrne, who sometimes abdicates backgrounds, but he does it for purpose. He's trying to show them fighting on a side plane. Really cool full-page spread here. This guy could draw. That's you'll see the X-Men here. They're all in chains with Jean Grey in the guise of the Black Queen. She's been mind warped by Jason Weingard. Here's issue 134. Absolutely spectacular cover. You know, where classic standoff between the X-Men and Hellfire Club on one side. This red and black motif, which is really powerful, with a beautiful rendition of Jean Grey with the Phoenix behind her. Really cool. I mean, just like, you know, just unbelievable comics here. I liked that Byrne was on, kept up to about issue, I think, 143. That's a Kitty Pryde story. After that, my man, what's his name, Diamond Dave Cochrum took over, and Diamond Dave was cool. I like him as well. A different style, but you know, this time period, he really didn't go wrong with this book. For Claremonte's whole run, he's got Claremonte's a spectacular writer, and for most of it, for the first 30-40%, he had John Byrne. Then you get Dave Cochrum for a chunk, and then after that, towards the late 80s, you get another really good run with, like, I want to say Mark Silvestri and Leonardi, and they're really good. And I think J.R. gets in there a little bit too. I'm not a huge fan of his, but he did a really good job with this book, and it was very effective art and different. You know, it's I'm not somebody where the art doesn't. As long as I like comic book art, I don't like it when they try to draw like realistic photo type pictures and so forth, like some of the guys do today. I don't like it when they just pose characters there. So you don't have to be like a super great detailed artist. You can be very comic bookish and cartoony, like you know, Jack Kirby. I think that's totally great comic book art. On the other hand, some of these guys, I think Greg Land is his name. He draws things like, I know he's got art skills. He draws like very like they look like photographs of the characters. It's like perfect, and they always look like they do in the movies. And I respect it, but I just don't enjoy that. Here's the end of that issue, and you can just see she's turning now into the Dark Phoenix, and you can see, I mean, the conveyance of power here and the ship exploding. It's powerful. You get a perspective issue. Here's Wolverine looking out of the Blackbird is the name of it. It's a stealth craft that they had, and that was a big deal. You know, this is like stealth craft, a new thing back then. That would be like our, I guess it's the what's it going to be, the F-47. This was a unique cover. This is really get that 135. I remember seeing this where she's crushing the title. I mean, that was some crazy art for the time. I mean, that was shocking when I got it. You know, I thought the comic might end. You know, and she's clear. Her uniform looks different. The face is definitely maniacal. The X-Men look defeated, and she tromps them. I mean, she tromps them, like, easily. It's like, you know, she used to be the weakest character on the team. Like, they made it, like, in the old days, like they had, like, a limitation. I remember when I was a kid, the big reference point was the bread box is big or small than a bread box. It was kind of like that. Like, she couldn't lift up anything heavier than, like, a heavily weighted bread box, or you know, maybe I don't know, like 100 pounds she could lift. But it was like her telekinetic and telepathic powers, both very limited. And she was kind of always the damsel in distress, kind of like Sue Richards was, which I never, you know, I came into comics when they were getting away from that. But like, when I go back and read those old issues, I really don't like it because I love the women characters just as much, if not more than that. I love the Winsome Wasp, I love Storm, I love Jean. I love Ms. Marvel. I love, you know, Sue Richards. I love all the Marvel women, and Hellcat. You know, Valkyrie. I love those girls. It's like anytime they're in a book, like I always wanted Wasp to lead the Avengers, and I was so stoked. Like when she took over the team, I guess it was the early '90s. But you can just see the shift exploding here. They're all falling through the air. I like the way that like they all use, if they can, their powers. Colossus basically armors up and just lets himself crash. Nightcrawler teleports down, and Storm grabs everybody else. On the way down, the other flyer on the team would be the Angel, but he comes back and forth on the team, kind of. He wasn't in this particular issue, but she tromps the team readily. I mean, it's like, I was reading this, I was about 12, 13 years old this time, and Colossus tries to pick up a tree, and she turns it to gold on him, and he crushes him. You know, she turns it back to human. That's the first thing, and he can't hold the tree. She kind of, I think, buries Storm alive, which was her biggest fear. Let's see if that's correct. something like that, or she makes her feel like she was buried alive, something like that. But yeah, it's a really devastating issue. She solidly beats the team. The Beast comes and he's kind of monitoring. He sees something going on the Avengers, one of the Avengers monitors, and he basically makes a decision. He's like, I was an X-Man and I'm an Avenger, but yeah, these are my guys. Like, I'm always really an X-Man. I'm always a mutant. On the Avengers, Beast was really friends with primarily like Hawkeye and particularly Wonder Man. He didn't really hang too much with Cap and Iron Man and Thor. He'd be there and he was really smart. Like, he'd be in the lab, maybe with Iron Man a little bit. But his boys were like the cut-ups, kind of. Like, Simon Williams was kind of a cut-up, like a wannabe actor. He was kind of a plasma being, even though he like took a human visage or guise. And then the Hawkeye, who's really got no powers, and he's like a carnival guy. That was the thing back in the day. Like, a lot of stories focused on carnivals and circuses, because fairs and things like that, because those were like where we saw like the eccentric people. You saw the strongman and the lion tamer, and the people they used to call quote unquote freaks of nature. And I hate using that because some of those people actually had deformations, but deformities, I should say. And but they would be in the comics. There was like a lot of circus of crime, all sorts of things. But the Hawkeye got his start in it as a carny, as a sharpshooter in the carnival. Here's the famous scene where she basically destroys a planet that's habitated by sentient humanoid beings, just to get use the energy of their star to repower herself, and then she destroys a Shi'ar spaceship. Now, this was where there was conflict, because I think and they do have a version of that in here somewhere at the end. Byrne and Claremont planned on letting her live. They planned on having something done to her psychically, made by Xavier and or Lilandra, where it diminished her powers, and the Phoenix part was excised. She basically was going to go back to Marvel Girl. And, like, she didn't really do it. The Phoenix did it. She was taken by the power, and it really wasn't her, that kind of argument. Jim Shooter, who was, I think, one of my neighbors in New York, he actually writes books about comic books, the history of it, and so forth. And there's a lot of, from what I'm getting, both from him and other people, and just videos on the internet and things like that, is the Jim Shooter is, some people love him, some people hate him. It's like he was the editor-in-chief of Marvel, very young prodigy. He wrote comics at a very young age, like teenager, and a lot of understanding of the art of comic books, just inherently smart guy. But he was kind of like, he had a rule set and he wanted people to stick to it. Like, he wanted you, like, in the comics, to introduce your characters, like, right up the bat, like, give their name and give an indication of their power, and let new readers, every comic could be a new reader's first issue of that particular run, of that particular comic book. And so you want to make sure that everybody could get on board easily from the first couple pages. And I think he's the reason why they have little head panels on the covers, things like that. They would put the characters, and they would always say they had like a little intro, and they would say who the characters were. It would say like Children of the Atom, Storm, Cyclops, yada yada. But I think what he did was, from what I understand, he made Byrne and Claremont have the ending where she would die at the end. He's like, she destroyed a planet that's not redeemable. It's she didn't just break a building or knock a building down like the Hulk, because Hulk never really killed anybody. He would knock a building down or a bridge, but they always implied there was nobody on it, and he never actually killed anybody. And so this was different. So here's issue number 136, another just powerful covers. I mean, Byrne was just killing it with these covers. It's like, and then the opening page here, it's beautiful. The art, the coloration. I think this is Glynis Wayne coloring. Let me see here. Chris Claremont, John Byrne. They list the writer, co-plotters both, and penciler John Byrne. Terry Austin is the inker. The colorist is Glynis Wine or Ween. I might be mispronouncing it. Wein. Tom Orzechowski, probably mispronouncing that as well, is the letterer. Jim Salicrup is the editor, and Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. So that's a power squad. You read these names for years. I don't know how to pronounce them because some of them I've never heard said. But here you see the Council of Lilandra, she's the head of if you're not familiar with the old school comics, there's a galactic empire. There's several big empires in space, in the galaxy, in Marvel. They might be multiple galactic. The Shi'ar are probably the most comprehensive, but you also have the Krees and the Skrulls and a whole bunch of other ones like the Badoon and a whole bunch of other races of beings, some humanoid, some not. Shi'ar are definitely humanoid, but they have some sort of avian evolutionary tract. I don't believe they're mammals, actually, but they kind of converge to look like mammals. They certainly can have relations with human, because Xavier and her were kind of having a thing, but I always loved when they showed aliens, and they would always have some very different looking ones, like she's got a council, and you can see that, there's a big worm guy in there, and, I always thought that was cool, that you got, intelligent worm, and, your kid, that's kind of blowing me away. Old school flashback here, the guy speaking on there, that's Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter talking to Jarvis of the Avengers. Jarvis, if you're a comic book fan from the movies, was actually a person, not a computer program. Jarvis was kind of a badass. He was the butler of the Avengers, but they make sure you know that he was the British Navy boxing champion. So sometimes Jarvis would mix it up if he had to. There was one episode of the Avengers I love where what's their name? The Wrecking Crew. Those dummies. They break into the Avengers mansion, and Jarvis tries to hold them off himself. He uses some gadgets and devices, but ultimately he ends up picking something up and trying to fight these guys. And he got himself. They have some Asgardian level characters there. I think the Wrecker has got an artifact from Asgard. He's his strongest story. He's a big dummy though. And they really put a beating on poor Jarvis. He's just basically a human at the end of it. And boy, when Cap and those guys came back and they saw Jarvis was battered, he's I tried to save the place, kind of thing. He's couldn't fight them off. And they leveled those dudes. They took it out on their behinds. Yeah, you love that when you're a kid. It's because the guy was just a righteous dude. He was right there with the Avengers, kind of like Alfred is. You know what I mean? With Batman, he's part of the team. This is it right here. This is X-Men 137. The one thing about that, which it's not the fault of the comic here, but this was ruined by this advertisement on the top, which was this Marvel comic could be worth $2,500 to you today. I think it was from a Toys R Us. Ironically, it's not. I'm not that big of a deal about it, but this page that was kind of ruined by just the sales on it. I have a crease that was naturally came with this comic when I took it out of plastic. I didn't send it back. It's a beautiful book, and it has a mutation, if you will, to go with the X-Men. So it has a little defect of a line running through it. That's a little crease that was just, when they produced it, probably unique to my issue. I'm just going to take it as a beautiful nuance of my comic here. You can see it actually runs into the next page. So, that's how life is. Sometimes you have a little scar or scratch on your body, and that's just how it is. It makes you different. But look at this splash page. It's incredible. You have pretty much the whole team of the X-Men from both the original and the new. I think Iceman is missing, but you have Angel, Psyche, Jean, and the Professor, and the Beast, in the Blue Furred form. He was originally not Blue Furred. Even in the movies, they show you he was human at first, and then he became more further mutated. And then you have the new team, the main members being Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, Wolverine's in there somewhere. Wolverine's in here, kind of in the crease here. Wolverine in there, and it's beautiful. They got pretty much everybody in Iceman. I always kind of wondered why they left Iceman out. Was he MIA at the time? There's a period in there around this time period where him and Angel were on the Champions of Los Angeles, but maybe he stayed with them, or maybe he was on the Defenders or something like that at this time period. But something happened to Iceman, because he doesn't show up at all in these issues. But here's the classic scene where Xavier calls out Lilandra, the head of the Imperial Guard, challenges her to basically a battle of honor for. They never say they're going to kill her, but you get the idea they might lobotomize her or something like that. It was going to be something severe. They might have killed. They never say, but they're going to do something to her that was severe, and he challenges them. Really great shots of Wolverine and company contemplating the day ahead, the battle they're going to have. They're all in it to win it. Nobody felt bad about being called out. I think Angel was kind of like, man, I haven't been in a fight in a long time. I don't know if I'm up to it kind of thing, but he was in it. And there's a scene here where Psych is talking to them all right before they go out. And it's really good. Angel, kind of being the other senior guy there, kind of steps up. And it says, Cyclops says, I'm just wanting to tell you that I'm fighting for Jean. I won't ask any of you to join me. I haven't the right. And I won't think of any less of you if you decide not to. And Angel says, Scott, we talked, he put an in there like he paused. We talked this out amongst ourselves before you got here. We all agreed we're here with you and Jean to the end. And then he goes, thanks, Warren. Thanks, all of you. And they face off. They're on the blue area of the moon. I'm running out of time here. We'll just pick up with this comic next time. Blue area of the moon. Really cool. It's it's one of these Marvel sensibilities. It's a habitable area of the moon that's from the Kree. I got to go. I'm running out of time here. So, Wild Man Z out. I hope you enjoyed my little excursion into Marvel. Take care.